Hey guys, so today I'm talking about a tool that I've had for 26 years and I'm actually working on number 2. My last project, I don't know where I put the tool. I've looked all over my greenhouse, my garage, everywhere, but this tool is so valuable that it kind of struck me that maybe not everyone knows about this tool or even has one. So this is one thing I'm going to go through. It's a 15-in-1 tool and it has so many uses. I'll show you some photographs as I talk here, but I've done everything from a greenhouse to finishing a room in my basement, to anything you can imagine, from a Japanese courtyard garden to numerous fences, post and rail fencing, privacy fencing, painting, woodwork, carpentry, everything you can imagine. It's 26 years I've been living on this property and I've went through so many projects I couldn't even name them all. But I'll tell you, there's one tool that was with me all the way, and I can tell you that if you're going to be starting any kind of project, whether carpentry, painting, remodeling, this will be one of those things you'll want to keep in your tool belt. Many people are probably going to be familiar with it, and then there's going to be other people that see it and say, nope, I've never owned one. So I'm going to show you step by step each of its magnificent uses and how great it is. The best thing about this tool is under $15, and it's really a bargain. And even better than that, it has a lifetime warranty. So if it breaks or something happens to it, which is very unlikely because it's built like a Sherman tank, but if it does, you can take it back to, I know Home Depot will just completely exchange it for you. And if that isn't near you, you can send it back to the factory in America. It's American made product. So let's go step by step and I'll show you each of the 15 ways you can use this tool that you need to have if you're doing any project around your house. This is the ancestor of the tool I'm using today, just an ordinary painter's scraper, and you can use this in a lot of different ways when you're painting. But the tool that I'm talking about, I'll show you in just a sec, but this tool was the ancestor of what we're going to be using today, but it's changed drastically. So we'll go step by step and I'll show you each one of those along the way. So guys, this tool right here, I'm going to show you each one of these unusual features of this painter's tool, and it's really one of those things that I wish I'd known about even before I found this one, because I did work in some remodeling early on when I was still in my 20s, and if I'd have known about this, this would have made things a lot easier. But I'm going to show you 15 tricks. Now I'm not sure how far this goes back or what year they developed this particular one, the brand Husky, but this one actually has 15 different features or 15 different tools. So let's start with the most basic, number 1. So the first use I'm going to show you is the bottom of this Husky painter's tool is actually a hammer. You could actually use it to hammer a small nail. Now you're not going to frame a house with this, but if you need to put a small nail in, this is one of the most ideal ways to do it if you don't have a hammer handy. Really strong and it won't damage it at all. But the second use I'll show you is even better. Let's get that in a little bit further. Okay, so if you don't have a claw hammer handy, you can also remove the nail. As long as it's got a decent sized head, just pull it and it comes right out. Super easy. May not be straight after you pull it out, like this one's got a little slight bend to it, but you could hammer that out with your hammer. But again, that's 2 quick uses, hammer and a nail puller all together. If you don't have a hammer handy, this comes in as a great secondary item. Now one of my least favorite things is interior painting, because you have to be so careful about making a mess, but often these paint can openers are often misplaced, paint key, whatever you call them, but I often misplace these even when I buy one or get one free from the paint store. But your painter's tool will work as well, opening paint cans without doing much damage to them. You don't have to worry about, like a claw hammer might do a lot more damage, but you can see it just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of patience. You can use both sides to do this. I'll show you the opposite side in just a sec, depending on the size of the paint can. So you can see that opens it up really quickly. But this smaller size can open up smaller paint cans if you can't quite get it in there. Let's make sure that's closed all the way. And in addition to opening the paint can, I'll show you, you can use this as a paint lid closer. Just gently tap around the sides. Now, unlike a larger hammer, you might put some dents in it like I've done in the past on this particular paint can. So let's say you have a smaller size paint can. Make sure that was closed. I'd opened it previously just to check, see if it would open. If it had not rusted, I noticed there was a little bit of rust right there. So you can use the smaller size to open up the can lid, and there you go. That works just as well. Use your hammer on the end to close it back up. So you have a dual paint can opener for a little bit larger paint cans and really small paint cans like this one. Now, if you lost your pencil somewhere along the way, this can also act as a marker for cutting wood. You can use the sharp edge right here and just run it down a flat end, and you can make a nice little gouge in a piece of wood where you can see exactly where to cut it. That is, if you've lost your carpenter's pencil. Now, in addition to some of the notches that are maybe a little bit more obvious to you, these two may not be as obvious, but these are also a 9/16 nut driver and a 7/16. So if you need to do a quick loosening of some bolts, or if you have something you need to tighten just a little, this thing has metal that runs all the way down it, so you can put quite a bit of torque on it to tighten up those size bolts. So shame that they didn't put more than just those two, but this too would come in handy if you need those particular sizes. So the Husky brand has something in the handle that a lot of brands don't. Now you might be thinking I'm talking about a removable thing to keep bits in, and I have seen that where this actually doubles as a screwdriver, but that kind of makes this hammer thing a little bit less effective because you have a big hole right there. So I'm kind of glad I have this particular model where I don't have to worry about missing a nail if I'm trying to tap something in quickly. But no, the item I'm talking about, or the 4 tools inside of the handle, is pretty ingenious, and they put it in a very special way. Just inside the handle you have this little device here, and it acts as a screwdriver. You have 4 different size screwdrivers, so it acts as 4 different tools. You have a 3/16, 1/4 inch, 5/16, and 3/8. So this really comes in handy. As long as you don't lose it, it fits pretty snugly and it won't fall out easily. I've never had it do that to me while I was working. Maybe when I'm working with the hammer, I suppose it could come out, but it's really something you have to pull on. There's a lot of friction on it when I do pull it out, so it doesn't come out super easy, but that comes in handy for a flathead screwdriver in 4 different sizes. So obviously this is probably the most common use, and then that is to use as a paint scraper, or in this case, I'm removing some of this fungus that has started to grow on one of my bonsai display stands, but just obviously you put it at just the right angle so you can get up underneath it, and you can remove old paint or something as disgusting as this fungus that seems to love growing here because this bonsai stand is constantly watered. But obviously that's the most obvious use of the current generation of painter's tool, as well as the old ones, which started out as just only a scraping tool. So I believe I read somewhere that painter's tape started around 1988. It was created by the 3M company, and it just came off really well, better than some of the older type of masking tapes. But a lot of times when I'm doing a paint job around inside or outside the house, I won't be able to find where I put this. I'll set it down and go off and do some work. So I usually put about 6 or 8 feet of painter's tape when I'm doing a painting job. This will be on my belt. I can just unravel it and do a small area where I might need to mask something where I don't want to get paint on it. So putting it on the handle, and it just goes a long way, and it doesn't take up any room. And a lot of times if you've misplaced your tape, this is really handy to have it close by. So that's kind of an unconventional use for this type of device. But again, since it's a painter's tool, it really comes in handy for that specific thing, to put a little bit of painter's tape right there on the hourglass shape of your painter's tool. Now, professional painters are going to use this particular device to help save them money, and that is to retain the paint once it's used. You can use this on smaller rollers than this, or a standard size roller. But whenever you get through with your painting job, you can run this down and it'll push the paint. You hold it over the can and it puts your paint back in the can, so you're not wasting even an ounce. For a professional painter doing this every day, it saves them literally gallons, maybe dozens or hundreds of gallons a year. And you can also use the little bit of a side over here that's got a little bit of edge to it, a little bit sharper. Once you rinse this out, you can go over this and remove water, and so you'll have a very nice dry paint roller the next day, and you haven't wasted any paint by using both sides. And that's pretty common knowledge, but I just thought I'd throw that in there because I don't want to leave anything out. So paint roller cleaners are very good for that, both sides. Whether large, small, or even tiny, this will work on all sizes. Now, I'm not through showing you all the features, but I wanted to say that this is totally unsponsored, so I'm not receiving anything in the way of sponsorship from Husky, which would be nice if I did. But I was thinking about what else they could do on this handle over here, and I thought maybe something like a Swiss Army knife that could fold out. Maybe just they could make a little indentation there and you could use it as a drywall cutter, you know, serrated type blade. So if anybody from Husky's listening, I think that would be a great addition of these, to be able to cut drywall if you're doing something and you need to cut just a small piece, not a major job, but just be something handy. You could put other types of blades there too, on the opposite side of your screwdriver there. So I thought that would be a suggestion maybe to Husky. So let's suppose this is a piece of drywall you're working with and there's a small nail hole or something like that. The most obvious thing for this painter's tool is spreading things like spackle, wood putty, anything like that. It gives you a nice flat even surface. Just you can angle it, work with it, and get it just right where you won't see the indentation of the nail or whatever else you're working with. So whether you're using wood filler or putty, that's what really these are most commonly used for. And you'll see the older ones in your parents' and grandparents' basement, and they'll just be a common, like this one right here, the initial one I showed you. This was originally the grandfather of this right here. And a little side note, if you're using wood filler, this wood filler has dried out a little bit. I forgot to do one step, is to spray it, mist it a couple of times with some water, and then put this inside of a freezer bag, then put it back on the shelf, because it will dry out over time, and these lids are not airtight. So guys, the doors on this shed are really showing their age, and I'm going to have to do a lot of scraping with this, but also this sharp edge point right here is great for separating any type of wood if you need to put in some caulking. Also, you can remove caulking by scraping the sharp side down in a corner like that, but also you can give it just some pressure there, and then you can work your way into it and just lightly twist it, and you can see this piece of molding right here is going to come up pretty good. I'm going to go back in and put some putty in there and then nail it back down, maybe with the end of this hammer. Now the next use for this tool is, you may not realize it, but the metal does not just stop right here. It actually goes all the way to the end. You can see right there the metal comes all the way back to this hammer point. So if you needed to use this for a chisel, you could take it and you could hammer on this end and use it just like you would a chisel, and it's strong enough to take quite a beating and not break. Again, these have a lifetime warranty, a limited warranty at your local hardware store like Home Depot. They will just change it out for a new one if it breaks or if there's any kind of defects in it. So that's one of the things about this little tool. Not only is it super inexpensive, but you could just change it out for another one if something happens within a short amount of time. Longer amount of time, you'll have to mail this to the company or ask them to send you a new one. Maybe you'll provide photos or something like that. Now recently I was doing a little bit of work on my post hole diggers because the nut had became a little bit loose, so this came in really handy because I had it just laying out in my greenhouse, so it tightened this up quite well. But one thing you might not consider is if you have a large flathead screw, I mentioned this with the small size screwdrivers in the handle, but you can also use this end right here and put quite a bit of torque on it without having to worry about damaging the painter's tool. So you can use this as a secondary flathead screwdriver if the ones in the handle are too small. This would cover quite a large screw, bolt, or anything with a negative slot there. Now if you need to remove a broken window pane, or if you're doing some window work and you need to remove the glass, you can run that down the inside of it repeatedly and break away some of the wood and putty that's holding it in place, and you can replace it. Also, whenever you do that, I've learned that you need to put a piece of painter's tape on the opposite side so it doesn't fall out the opposite direction and you end up with broken glass everywhere. Now another great thing about these, or this particular model of painter's tools, is there's a hole right there in the handle. I like to put a zip tie through it, and so I can hang it on a nail or anywhere I'm working, and it'll be handy at eye level, or I'll be able to know where it's at exactly. Also, I can clip it onto one of the carabiner clips, mountain climber clips that I often have on my belt, and it'll just hang around until I need it, and it's right there next to me. The last tip is one, it's a little bit unusual, because what most people do with this drink is they drink it, but I actually know of a recipe to take this drink and turn it into a fertilizer. I've got a video where I used yeast in a video, and I'll put that link up above, but it did quite well, and a lot of people have found a lot of use with it and said that it actually provided quite a bit of help for their vegetable garden. But the last tool on the 15 list, and I think I've gone beyond 15 because I added a couple things to it, but I'll show you what you do with that last tool. So guys, the last tool we use on the list is a common bottle opener. It works great, and as I said, I'm going to put a recipe in the description to what you can make beer into a fertilizer for your vegetable garden. And you only do it once or twice a year, and it makes a huge difference in your vegetable production. There's enzymes in the beer that will help, but there's a few other ingredients you need to add to it to boost its effectiveness. So again, that's the last item on our list, is this bottle opener right there, whether it's carbonated beverage like beer or just some kind of other common everyday Coke, Pepsi, or whatever you have. It works great at opening your bottle at the end of the day or during your lunch break. So guys, this is just a simple tool, but it has so many uses and so many purposes, and probably some that I haven't even mentioned today, but it really helps you when you're remodeling, painting, building, doing carpentry work, whatever. It's just one of those things that you find indispensable, and you'll probably find some that no one's ever thought of. If you do, put them in the description if you've ever come across one of these and you've used it for something I didn't mention. But again, I'll put a link in the description if you want to pick one of these up. Not sponsored in any way, just thought you might like it. I think it could be improved a little bit. I think there's a few things that could be added to it to make it even better. But again, it's a big corporation and they probably don't watch a little YouTube channel like mine. So guys, if you have any questions about this video or any previous past video, please leave a comment after you subscribe, because I put those people to the front line. I get so many comments, it's just hard for me to answer everybody, and I would like to, but it's just not possible. So guys, have a great day.